All right, so that's pretty dark on one side. Is it better over here? Not really. Okay, so I want to make a YouTube channel / podcast, but having a little bit of trouble deciding what I want to do because I think I have a surplus of ideas. So right now the top idea is to watch Dragon Ball Z and work through, well, actually Dragon Ball. Probably start with like from the very beginning and go through doing some, I guess, blue collar intellectual analysis of the archetypal stories that are involved. So, obviously Goku being the hero, and go through and talk about how this story lays out something akin to a mythology that we could, as people, adopt certain principles from and therefore live better lives because of that. I really like the idea of taking a show that's as much for children as anything, like Dragon Ball, is like awkward sexual humor and things that wouldn't hush, Robin, things that wouldn't be necessarily socially acceptable in a TV show these days. I don't know why I like that so much, but I kind of like the idea of, like saying, forget the system and bucking the taboo, if you will. So that's one idea. And I should probably do it with a different show. Like start with something more popular, maybe. But it's hard to find popular shows that are archetypally relevant. So maybe the Marvel series. I could do the Marvel series breakdown. Just kind of start with the first movie chronologically, I guess would be Captain America, and go from there and just work my way through each film doing archetypal breakdowns of the 3 act structure, and but view it from more of a psychological perspective. How can we take something like Captain America and learn some lessons from it, take his flaws and advantages and translate them into something practical that we could use in our own lives. The reason that I think that would be relevant to viewers and to listeners is because, first of all, I'm interested in stories. I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to create my own universes. I think that number one, that's a lot of fun. But unfortunately, I'm not. I don't particularly enjoy the process of sitting down and actually writing something. So there might be some fiction coming out later from me, because one of the other ideas that I have that I think is viable is potentially hurting my cat. The other idea that I have is that I think is very reasonable to flesh out in video format would be a in-character fictional episodic journey that is myself playing a character. Maybe it's set in, maybe I can play around a little bit with my background and do it as if it were a sci-fi dystopian world where I'm, stuck in a spaceship, and it would be essentially the vlog of a fictional character, but I would be in character creating the blog as we go through the story and the journey. That said, so that's one idea that's, I guess I kind of deviated from what I was talking about. But in regards to the fictional blue collar intellectual commentary, I think Marvel would be a good place to start. I think Dragon Ball would be a good place to start because Dragon Ball's quite archetypal, and it follows a very standard set of story arcs and uh, sticks to almost a mythology as opposed to uh, something that's trying to send a message. Any good fiction really starts with a question in mind, and then the artist goes about addressing that question and exploring that question using their art, and in which case would be just whatever medium they happen to be proficient with. But a lot of movies nowadays tend to start with the answer in mind and work backwards. Like how can we um, take what we want to say and package it inside of a story and slip that into people's minds? And number one, it's not very enjoyable from a viewer's standpoint. I don't particularly like watching those movies or those TV shows where I know the answer to the question to begin with because it's really obvious when they do it that way. And often the ideas that they're trying to portray are very unhelpful or perhaps even insidious or as if they're diseases, like Gad Sad's new book. Um, so finding a popular current TV show or movie might be a little bit difficult, but there are a lot of people who are still making really, really good archetypal stories. Um, Disney doesn't have a, you know, monopoly on archetypes. So there's tons of viewer or filmmakers that put that kind of content out, put out that kind of content. So there's one idea, and then the second idea I mentioned was the um, I forgot what the second one was. Mostly because I can't think. There's an annoying cat in the background. Oh, the fictional characters. Yeah, acting out fictional characters. I think Critical Role really turned me on to the idea of a little bit more theatrical position from my standpoint. I've never been into acting or portraying any of the characters that are in my head, but I like to sing and I like to hear myself talk. So, and I'm also I have a bachelor's in linguistics, so it's easy for me to, or easier, I think, for me to adopt certain accents and stick to that accent and play around with that accent a little bit, mix multiple accents together or come up with a character in my head, come up with a voice for that character. So I think that would be a lot of fun, especially if it was done in shorter clips, vlog style. So let me know if you're interested in that at all. The other idea I had was actually taking some Facebook posts because I look at Facebook on a regular basis, um, and a lot of times I see posts that are things that I don't just disagree with. I don't really have any problem with photos or memes or comments that I disagree with. If I disagree with something, that's fine. I just think the other person's wrong. That's no issue. They're welcome to be wrong. The ones that really get to me are actually the ones that are things that I perceive to be detrimental to society as a whole, ideas that I perceive to be undesirable as far as society is concerned, things that might very well be potent enough or dangerous enough to ruin an empire, even. And we've seen this countless times throughout history. It's typically a single or maybe two or three ideas that get worked into a society that then demolish that society's integrity and then subsequently destroy the society itself. Uh, Soviet Russia comes to mind. So I could do some tracking down of that. That might be an interesting thing just to have a Facebook post that I have an issue with, and just kind of walk through and take a little bit of time to flesh out that issue and why it's an issue for me. And maybe people would agree with that, maybe people would disagree with that, maybe it would be enough to spark some halfway decent conversations or dialogues between people who might be able to view those videos. So that's 3 ideas. I'm going to try to work my way up to 4, or I'm sorry, 5. So number 4 idea would probably be fun to play around with some comedy. I'm not naturally a very funny person, so it'd be fun to write a few jokes and work them into a more serious conversation, just to make that conversation go through a little bit better. Just communicate my ideas in that format would be an interesting game to play, because I'm a huge comedy fan, specifically stand-up comedy. I'm not big on comedy movies or comedy TV shows, aside from Psych, which is probably the best network TV show ever created, or most entertaining, maybe not best, but most entertaining to me. So playing with that would be a little bit of fun, but that could probably be worked into other ideas. So I won't really call that an idea. It would be fun to do just an outright commentary show in regards to news and current events and ideas that I see popping up, ideas that my friends might have, ideas that my girlfriend has. She has a wonderful idea that I did some brief writing on yesterday, because she has this idea that in order to receive something from what she would call the universe, one has to first let go of that desire. So let's say you want to start a business. Well, you're not going to be able to start a business until you let go of the will or the desire to do that. And that idea has bothered me for a long time, because I don't like the mechanics of it. I don't agree with the mechanics of it necessarily. So I've been trying to bridge the gap on that idea. And the best thing that I could end up coming, or it just kind of hit me last night, while I was thinking about something completely different. Personally, I'm experimenting or trying to learn a little bit more discipline in my life, mostly because it's going to help me do a lot of the things that I'd like to do that are more productive things, like making this video, or writing a book, or all of the endless things that we all have plans to do that we rarely actually end up doing because we get caught up in life and work and sleep and TV shows and beer and drugs. I need to personally, I don't get to work out because I don't have my schedule lined up. So which is something that I enjoy doing. I'd like to work out. I would like to be in good shape. I used to run 8 miles a day. I ran collegiate cross country, 8+ miles a day, and I loved doing that. But it was when I was in college. I had plenty of time to go do whatever I wanted, especially since I went to a smaller college. It wasn't very difficult or rigorous for me, being a relatively intelligent person, and their rubric being rather lackluster. So I could do that. I'm going to do that, the discipline part. But it'd be nice to talk about it and share the journey. And the problem is there's so many people doing that already, It's like, it's kind of a dime a dozen at this point, somebody improving themselves and making YouTube videos about it. Look at me, I do yoga. I mean, good for you. You're doing yoga. That's awesome. I'm glad. But the only reason people are watching it a lot is because of the pants that you're wearing. Let's be honest. If I had a butt that looked like that, I'd want to show it off too. So idea number 5. Idea number 5 is actually a history podcast, a la Dan Carlin. That would be entirely fiction. So I really like the way that Dan Carlin goes about making his shows, where it's very, number one, he's well researched. I really like that, and he's he calls himself not a historian, but he's definitely more of a historian than I am, and that would be fun to play around with in a fictional context, because one of the biggest things that I like about fiction is not the writing part. We've already discussed that. I don't like sitting down and just typing away because I'm a slow typer and I get stuck in the grammar and the syntax of all of it. Um, so being able to maybe take a step back and just design the world itself, and then just, or what I would really be designing is not just the world, but also a history to go along with that world. Things about how this society clashed with this society and why and what happened, and maybe even throw in some, a little bit of political or societal commentary in that, by creating certain problems and then letting them work themselves out in the histories. That would be interesting and fun. And then the presentation would be very similar to Dan Carlin's, a little bit of music in the background, and just sit and talk, tell the story from a, third person omniscient sort of view. And even, I could write my own little fictional letters from, a Civil War general or whatever, or, in that style where a soldier writes home to his lover, who's actually in secret has already passed away from, I don't know, whatever people died of during the Civil War. Tuberculosis, or, well, that's kind of a long one. Maybe it would be like consumption or something. I don't know. Especially being able to. I had a friend in elementary school named Chris, and we actually had to do a project where we wrote a letter as if we were on one side or another of the Civil War, as if we were soldiers. And he really dove into it in a creative way. And it was the first time I ever saw somebody genuinely dive into something in a creative way that was super fulfilling and very interesting to watch. And he's a very creative person. He ended up being in theater. Um, and he was also the type to have competitions with his dad where they would both see who could finish The Hobbit quicker. Oh, it looks like maybe Drea's home. All right, I'm going to conclude this video. Those are my ideas. I'm going to wrap them up and see if people like those ideas, and we'll go from there.